Hey guys, welcome back to Allison Unfiltered. I have a really cool guest today, and I'm excited to introduce him. His name is Jordan Crowder, and he is the author of a book called Entrepreneurial Spirits. Wow, that's a tongue twister for me to say. And he's also owns a marketing agency called Alive and Kickin, and we have such an interesting way that we met, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But Jordan, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to interview you.
Yeah, no, this has been a long time coming. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it has been a long time coming. You're not an easy man to get a hold of.
I aspired to have a successful marketing business, and then I got it, and then I was like, oh no, now I'm super busy. So, kind of be careful what you wish for sometimes. So,
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, it's interesting because I started following you on Facebook years ago, like probably 3 or 4 years ago, and you posted these like you had this incredible story that you were posting about, but in the interim of your story, you were posting pictures of the this beach, and I'm like, oh my God, you live in paradise. So tell us about where, like what area you live in and what beach you love so much.
yeah, so I live in this place called 30A, Florida. It's Seaside, Florida is probably the place people have heard of the most. It's in between Panama City and Destin. So if you've ever seen the movie The Truman Show, it's where they filmed The Truman Show movie. That's right around the corner from me. So it's kind of eerie actually, because that movie's so eerie in so many ways, and to be able to like walk around the same place that they shot that movie. But so I live right by the beach, and I kind of my whole life I just had this desire, this burning desire to be a designer. I didn't really know what I wanted to be, but I knew I wanted to be a freelance designer, have total freedom, and live at the beach. And I always wanted to go to San Diego because I just got back from vacation from there when I was a kid, and I set this path out. I'm gonna live in San Diego in a little hut, and I'm just gonna design. And my whole life that was my plan. And then we actually went right instead of going left. We came to Florida and just fell in love with this place. Came here on vacation, just loved everything about it. And we had been searching for a perfect beach town, just going from beach town to beach town on our family vacations, and didn't really like any of them. Liked them for like vacation purposes, but not to like to live and to move the kids. So we found this place and it checked all the boxes. And then we just sort of got to manifesting and just really, made it happen. And, unfortunately, my mom passed away, and that was like the last thing that was kind of holding me in Texas. And after that sort of tether was cut, then I felt like at that point I could move because I would never have left her before because she was the thing holding me there. So as much as I fantasized about moving, I knew I couldn't move away from her. But once she passed, then I was kind of like, you only live once. Now's the time. So we basically just moved. We didn't really have a plan. We didn't really have anything out here. We didn't do it in, I would say, the proper channels, but it was more of a spontaneous thing that we kind of felt if we didn't do it then, we probably would never do it. So we just did it, and we love it. We've been here 10 years now.
Well, I remember reaching out to you and I was like, okay, look, I got to know where you live and where this beach is that you're taking these pictures because I have to come to this beach, like
Yeah,
this beach. And
it's
you were
remarkable.
probably like, oh my Lord, who is this weirdo reaching out to me? Like, this is crazy. But we actually booked a trip that summer. We were at Blue Mountain Beach and it was incredible. And we booked the most beautiful condo, had our two youngest sons with us who were, like 18 and 19 at the time. But, we got to fly them first class to Florida. Normally we drove to like Gulf Shores, Alabama. That's kind of where we went.
Hmm.
Um, but I remember reaching out to you and saying, okay, where would you go eat? And that's the coolest thing about Facebook is you and I would not know each other ever and without Facebook, right? Without what you posted. And I think it's just so interesting how we can reach so many different people, right?
Hmm.
And we went and ate at a place called Grayton's that you recommended, and it was incredible. And the kids loved it. It was just a really great experience. So I want to say thank you to that because that that just gave us like an unforgettable memories for the rest of our lives with that place. I mean,
Good.
golly,
Yeah,
it's
that's why when we
beautiful.
came here, we didn't ever want to leave. And when we kind of made our decision in our heads mentally to move, there was no other place but this. So
Yeah.
I used to tell people to keep it quiet, not to tell anyone, but the cat's out of the bag now. So we keep showing up on all the like top 10 travel lists in the world and everything. So, the secret's out. So, it's, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
but
I
it was
remember
really,
you were a little reluctant to tell me where you were because y'all don't it's your own little slice of heaven, you know. I mean, you guys you do the coolest stuff with the drones and seeing the dolphins, and then I have a heart attack when I see the sharks and y'all are out there on paddle boards, and I'm like, oh my God, Jaws is gonna get y'all.
yeah.
It's just, but it's so good, and you and your wife are you're just amazing people. You really are.
Oh,
And you have a story about that, and I want you to share that story, because I think that there's so many people that struggle, like you did. So back it up a little bit and tell me about your story, and I'll quit talking and let you talk.
I know. Yeah, so I mean, like I said, everyone has a story. I mean, life is crazy. Life is wild. I think life is an obstacle course on purpose. I think, we're here to be challenged and to learn. And you can't learn anything in a utopia. If everything was perfect and nothing bad ever happened, you wouldn't really learn. So I think life's supposed to be hard. So what it does is it creates good stories. If you make it long enough through life, you're gonna have some pretty wild stories. So um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So at least there's that. But so I grew up in Texas, and I was a graphic designer, and I went to the Art Institute, and after that I became a marketing director, and I did the corporate thing. We had kids, we moved out to the burbs, bought our house, bought our cars. We're living the traditional, American life, doing all the things, checking all the boxes that we thought we were supposed to do, and we weren't real happy, because we felt like we were living someone else's life. We didn't really feel like we were living our life. We felt like we were doing the things we were supposed to do, not the things we wanted to do. And like 10 years goes by, and you're like, whoa, you blink and you turn around, you're 10 years older, and you're like, yeah, we had good jobs and we bought a house and we went on family vacations, but we didn't really feel fulfilled. So like I said, I was very close to my mom. She got real sick and she passed away, and that sort of just turned my whole world upside down. Because that wasn't part of the plan. She wasn't sick for long. It was a very quick thing that happened, and so it kind of that just shook me out of my little zombie mode that I was in. And made me realize, oh, life's short. Things can happen at any time. So we decided to kind of live a little. We had always fantasized about moving to the beach. We had, you know, you kind of think about it in your head, you daydream, oh, what it would be like. You go on vacations and you pretend that you live there, and you go even like little window shopping for houses while you're on vacation. We did all those things, but we knew we were never going to move. And then when my mom passed, all of a sudden, like kind of we were free to do anything we wanted. Obviously, I would give anything to have her here and still be back in Texas. But the one thing that came from it was it made us realize, you know, like it's time. It's time to go and do what we want to do. So this place was always calling us. We moved out here to Florida. I had a corporate job back in Texas. I worked remote as a marketing director, and I wouldn't advise anyone to do this, but I needed to be able to have income when I moved out here because it was very quick and I didn't have anything set up out here. So I worked remote. I didn't actually tell my business. And then I just came out here and I kept working. And it was about 3 months before they finally realized I had moved to Florida. And they're like, did you move to Florida? And at this time, just a little context, our company was being acquired and we were being bought, and they were firing people right and left. And it was really toxic. And I knew I was on the chopping block because the company that bought us had a marketing department and everything. So my days were numbered. They had made it very clear. So I took that as extra motivation. Okay, let's get out of here. Let's go start our new life. And but I milked that remote part as long as I could. So I had
Sure.
income coming while I was setting up my marketing business here. And so everything was, fine, going good, getting acclimated to being in Florida. But the stress of taking on, I had never been an entrepreneur before. I'd always been entrepreneurial minded and I had side hustles, but to have all of the responsibility on me and this business that I was starting, it really weighed heavy on me. And it actually led me to um, develop a drinking problem. And I was drinking more and more, and the basically just the weight and the stress of the responsibilities of running the business just snowballed. And next thing you know, I'm drinking out of control. and not partying necessarily, just drinking, just all day, every day, as just like a medicine, as the same way now I take supplements. I was drinking, and
Yeah.
it was like my way to go to sleep. It was my way to deal with stress and anxiety. It was my way to get through the day. So it was just all day, every day as like a medicine. And your body can only take so much. I got to a certain point where I got really, really sick. I was basically didn't leave the bed for a few days. I got pancreatitis really bad, and my organs started failing. I didn't know any of this. I just thought I was sick. I played it off as, oh, I'm just sick. And then finally, my wife, who was at that point was working, she was managing a coffee shop nearby. She knew something was wrong. I was really good at BSing, and I was just telling her, "Oh, I'm sick. I'll be better tomorrow." After like 3 days of this, she's like, "No, I'm taking you to the hospital." So she dragged me to the emergency room, and evidently it was way worse than we thought. It was way worse than I wanted to admit to myself, and it was kind of a bad time because they didn't know if I was going to live. So next thing you know, I went from fun loving Jordan, paddleboarding at the beach and running my own business to like laying on a table with these people telling me it's not looking good. And so that obviously another wake up call. So I had to dig deep inside at that point and make a decision that I'm either going to die here on this table or I'm going to walk out of this hospital and change everything about my life. So I had to change my mentality. I had to change my daily habits. I had to change my, um, everything. I mean, I was at that point, I've lost 65 pounds now. So I was 65 pounds heavier. Um, I'm kind of a small frame guy. So I was 220 pounds, which is, a lot for me. And, my blood pressure was off the charts. All my vitals were incredibly bad. I mean, they basically said that I shouldn't have survived, but then fast forward just a little bit, just about 6 weeks after that, when I went back and got all my follow-up tests, they said they had never seen any sort of a turnaround like that. They'd never seen triglycerides drop that low in that amount of time. They'd never seen cholesterol adjust that way. They'd never seen blood pressure drop the way mine did. So as bad as it was, and I mean it was bad, like to the point where there was this male nurse came in and he was doing the tough love thing, and he was just like, "You're an idiot. You did this to yourself. You're going to die here." I mean, he was just like a no BS guy. And I was like, thanks. Like the girl nurses were more nurturing. This guy, he was giving me the tough love. And I think that's what I needed at that point because he cut through all of my layers, my
Mhm.
self-defense layers, and got down to the core. And I was like, crap, maybe that guy's right, and all of it together woke me up. And then when I got out, I had a long road recovery ahead of me, but it I had a little near death experience in there too that I didn't really realize until down the road when I was started meditating and I relived it. But put all of it together, and between my mom passing, moving here, having the near death, almost dying, having to rehab myself back to health, it really got me in tune with who I am. They say know thyself, and you have to really get to know yourself. I mean, I spend a lot of time with myself. I spend a lot of time in self-reflection, doing all sorts of shadow work and dealing with trauma, childhood trauma, and self trauma, and all these things. And just at the end of the day, I wouldn't change any of it. I think it was supposed to happen in a way. It seemed predestined. It seemed like that was part of my journey. And as crazy as it was, and traumatic as it was, and and everything like that, I mean, I really think that it was just an essential part of my learning process, and I wouldn't change any of it. I'm smarter now, I'm stronger now, I'm better for it. But yeah, it was kind of wild. So that in a nutshell, that was my journey.
And the interesting thing is it's so true. I would not be who I am today had I not been addicted to cocaine,
Yeah.
right? I would not be who I am today. We're part of a friend of mine and I'm part of a ministry that we go every Wednesday night and we talk to the kids at the Smith County Juvenile Detention Center. And I tell them all the time, the only difference between me and you is you got caught and I didn't. Like, I should be in federal prison, and they just like their mouths, you see their jaws just drop, right? Because they think, oh, I'm just this, church lady, that had it all good and life was fantastic. you know don't don't let my face fool you, right? I was a lot of trouble. And I think that I wouldn't be there today had I not been through what I've been through. And I love what you said about life, we're here for the challenge. I love that. That's such a good quote. Um, because you're right. If you do make it long enough, you're going to have some great stories. And man, I've had a lot of fun in life, a lot of fun with a lot of people and a lot of drugs. And it was real and it was fun till it wasn't real fun anymore. And until the bad stuff started happening, right? And your body changes and your teeth start falling out and like crazy stuff for me. But I wouldn't be who I am without going through what I went through. And the crazy thing too is that even for me, God has an interesting way of reminding me all the time where I came from, because I still to this day, like when I went into the dentist after I'd been on drugs for about a year, I had like 26 cavities. And I've had probably like $50,000 worth of work done to my mouth, probably more than that now, but I just had another 2,500 done last week, because my teeth are still suffering from, everything that was good then, it's not good now. So all of that work has to get replaced, right? So it's like a constant reminder of, yeah, you went through some stuff, and I'm going to continue to remind you of that so you stay humble, it's
Yeah,
just,
that's important. I mean, you need those reminders, you know.
yeah.
As much as you want to like just wave a wand and have everything go back to normal, I mean, sometimes it's good to have those reminders.
Yeah, it's an expensive reminder, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I noticed when I was following you was when you were trying to get your health back, when not trying, you were getting your health back. There's no such thing as try. I don't like to use that word because you either do or you don't. There's no try, right?
Trying is
Um,
doing. You know, if you're trying, you're doing, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I had someone say you can't try to pick up the sand. You either pick up the sand or you don't,
Yeah.
I mean, it's in your hands. So, but one of the things I liked is you went through this journey of different lifestyle changes, different foods you were eating. I don't want to say a diet because it wasn't a diet that you were on. It was a lifestyle change that you were experimenting with. So talk a little bit about all of those, and then like the conclusion you came to in the end, because it was so cool to follow that. It was so great. Like just
Yeah.
it was awesome.
Well, like I get out of the hospital and I have severe pancreatitis, which is the worst pain in the world. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemies. I mean, it's just a severe, never-ending pain radiating from your abdomen. And on top of everything else that I had. I mean, I had just a host of issues to the point where when I went to the doctor, she was just going down the list and like she's sweating, telling me all the things wrong with me, and then she's like, okay, we'll just end there for today. We'll get to page 2 and 3 after we get done with this. And I was like, whoa, there's more. So it was so bad. So I was like, okay, and you're kind of on your own. Like the doctors, they kind of tell you what's wrong with you. They prescribe you a pill if you want it, but they don't give you a roadmap or any sort of instructions of how to actually holistically heal yourself. And I didn't want to take any pills. At the beginning, I had to because of my condition, but my goal was always to, you know, only take them for a little bit of time and then to get everything, on track, naturally. So the trouble was I had to fix all these problems and I didn't know how to do it. So you're kind of just thrust back here into this world and you're like, okay, all these things are wrong with you. You're basically dying and now you have to go fix it and the clock is ticking. And so I didn't know what to do. And I just started researching and talking to people and just, trying to be as resourceful as possible. So I knew with pancreatitis, the best thing I could do at the beginning, anyways, was to lower the amount of fat I was eating and to go on a all natural diet and stop drinking was number one. So I had to quit drinking. That was very tough, obviously. If you're an alcoholic, someone tells you to quit drinking, it's like, yeah, easier said than done. But that was number one. Nothing was going to work if I was still drinking. So I made that my
Let
first
me
priority.
ask you this: when you stopped drinking, did you fall off again? Did you struggle with that?
Yeah, so when I got out, I was delusional in the sense that before what put me in the hospital was I drank a lot of liquor. I liked bourbon and whiskey and vodka and anything in a bottle. But those were my favorites. So I love drinking liquor. So I thought, oh, I have a brilliant idea. I'll just drink beer. And that'll be okay. Well, I was too fragile. My system was in too much. it was at a state where I couldn't drink anything. So even though I thought I was being good because I cut out all liquor, so what I had done is I had given myself this sort of goal of, okay, I'm never drinking liquor again. What that did is it bypassed the real problem, and the real problem was alcohol. It doesn't matter what it's called or what bottle it's in. I couldn't have alcohol, but I didn't want to hear that. So I just started drinking beer. And at first it was okay. And then I was like, okay, well, now I can have heavier beer. Oh, now I can have craft beer. So there's alcohol getting its tentacles back in you. And yeah, so to
Right.
answer your question, I did fall off because when I got out, my plan wasn't good. I didn't have a plan. My plan was, okay, no more liquor for me. And then I got real sick again. And then whenever I got real sick again, I had to make a decision. I was like, I'm headed right back to the hospital. If I keep doing this, and I mean, this was only a few weeks. It didn't take long for me to get to the point where I was almost back in the hospital. And I just had my wife actually, Sarah, she was like, she was drinking too, but she never had a problem. She just drank socially like most people do. And she was like, okay, well, I'm not going to drink anymore. She read this book called Girl Wash Your Face. And
That's
it
a great book.
Okay, cool. She said it changed her life. So she read that and she's like, I'm not gonna drink anymore. I was like, well, babe, you don't have a problem. You can drink. And she's like, I know, but I don't want to. She's like, I'm just not going to. So that hit me, and I was like, well, man, if she's stopping and she doesn't even have a problem, what the hell am I doing still drinking? So at that point, it was that day, stopped. So both of us stopped on the same. Well, I think I was like the next day, but we stopped at the same time. We've both been sober for 4 years now, and so yeah, to answer your question, I did fall off, but it wasn't so much falling off. It was that I never actually quit because I didn't have the right plan. I didn't have the right mindset. So it was at that point when I decided to write off alcohol forever. Because in my head, I said I never want to be one of those people that counts the days, that says I'm X amount of days sober. I always thought that was weak-minded for some reason. I thought that moderation is everything. I'll be able to just maintain. Um, but it was that day that I made a decision. I said, I'm never drinking alcohol again, period. And I'm not usually one of those people that says things like that. I think in moderation. I think that, you can tolerate things. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, I used to smoke cigarettes and I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. I used to do drugs. I don't do drugs anymore. So why am I giving alcohol a pass? Why am I saying, oh, in moderation is okay? No one says a little bit of crack is okay. No one says a little bit of heroin's okay. You know what I mean? So like we
Well,
we
people do.
exactly, we call them crackheads. But no, just kidding. But and honestly, like alcohol gets a pass in our society. Like we say, no amount of meth is good, no amount of heroin is good. We say those things, but then you say, oh, you can have a couple drinks a night. And I think that what that does is it creates this culture to where alcohol isn't isn't criticized as much as other things. And I'm not saying no one should drink. It's not a judgment thing at all because I know people that are super healthy, fitness experts, and they drink occasionally, and that's totally fine. But certain people know if they can or can't. And someone like me, I knew I couldn't, and I still kept giving it excuses and giving it passes because of the culture we live in, where I'm like, okay, well, they're doing it, so I can do it. So I had to just make that decision, put down the steel curtain, and say never again. And when I did that, not only that changed, but like it made a ripple effect in my life because then I could apply that same technique to all sorts of other things, like food. I was eating unhealthy foods. I was living an unhealthy lifestyle in general. So then I just applied that same mentality. I kind of compartmentalized things and I put them into these compartments where I would say, okay, what are things that I know I wouldn't ever do? Okay, well, I wouldn't go and like smoke a cigarette and have a Slurpee and smoke crack. I know I wouldn't do those things. So now I'm going to put these other things in that same category. And as extreme as that sounds, that's what I had to do mentally to compartmentalize my habits and make sure that these things that before were getting a pass now are getting put in the worst of the worst. So like a supermax prison. So it's where you put the worst
Can
of the
I
worst.
can I pause you for a second because I wanna highlight something that you said. You you didn't say that you couldn't. You said that you wouldn't anymore. Right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions why people get to a point where they feel deprived is because like when they're changing their lifestyles or whatever. I mean, I'm a health and wellness coach. I've been doing it for 7 years. But people, when they start feeling deprived, if you say there's a difference in saying, okay, here's a cupcake, and you say, no, I can't have that, or no, thank you, I don't want that. right?
Yeah.
There's a different mind shift and mindset in you choosing, I don't eat things like that anymore, right? It's not, I can't have it, which is considered um, your, oh, I said the word a minute ago. I have a hard time finding my words.
I
Um,
think it goes back to us being kids and like our parents telling us what we can and can't do. So if someone tells you you can't do something, it makes you want to do it. But if you're
yes,
telling yourself
yes.
it's not that you can't do it, it's that you shouldn't do it. If you want to
Or you
be,
or you choose not to for this time being. Like, this is, I choose not to do it. There's a guy I listen to, an entrepreneur, Darren Hardy, and I listen to him every day, and he's like there's things that I don't do anymore, and I made a decision, and I decided that I'm not doing these things. One is, I don't eat bread. Two, I don't eat sugar. Three, I don't miss a day of exercise. Those are non-negotiables for me that I've
mm,
made a decision on. So I don't ever say I can't, I just don't.
yeah,
And that's such a hard mindset for so many people, especially when it comes to food, because we use food for everything, for celebration,
yeah,
for sadness. And we have to learn how to live. We have to eat to live and not live to eat.
yeah. So on that
And that's
note,
hard to do in this society.
oh yeah. I mean, we're a victim of like great marketing. Everything is great marketing. So everywhere you go, they're trying to sell you things that you don't want or need, but all of a sudden you're doing it because of great marketing. But on that note, I had to start looking at food as medicine. And whenever I got out of the hospital and I had to heal my body, I no longer looked at food as food. I didn't look at it as before. I just looked at it as, oh, I get hungry, I eat, or oh, that looks yummy, I'm going to eat it. I all of a sudden was every single thing I put in my body was deliberate and well researched. Every single thing I ate was eaten for a reason. It was eaten to either heal something, give me relief in some way, or give me energy, or to lose weight, to improve my metabolism, and increase my insulin resistance. Something. It's like every single thing I ate was done deliberately and for a purpose. So all my food, I looked at my food as like a medicine cabinet. I looked at my food as taking my medicine. So, and that goes to food, the drinks I was drinking, the supplements I was taking. So, and I still to this day look at food, 4 years later, as medicine. And if I eat something that's not medicinal, like if I eat something that has no nutritional value to it, I think in my head the same way as if I don't know, had like a beer or something. I really do. Like I think about it as why would I do that? Why would I eat that? It doesn't do me any good. And that doesn't mean you can't indulge and you can't, still live your life and have fun. I still love food. The food that we eat is super yummy. We put a lot of effort into sourcing food and cooking food and enjoying food, but it's all whole food, it's all healthy food, and it's all eaten for a specific reason and purpose. And that is hard in this culture. That's not how we're raised. That's not what we're presented. That's not what the commercials are telling us to do. When you go to the store, all the graphics and all the end caps and everything are trying to sell you unhealthy things. So you have to navigate this world, all these obstacles, and just know I'm doing this for a purpose. And you just kind of have to put your blinders on and just not pay attention to all that stuff. And it is hard, but once you get into a routine, it just becomes normal. So
I think
it
that's
gets
the key
easier.
too, is a routine. But when you started out, the first thing you did was you went all vegetarian, right? Like talk about the different
Yeah.
phases that you went through, where you started and where you ended up now.
Yeah, it's like a pendulum. So at the beginning, I was completely, basically vegan, and the main reason for that was I had to cut out fats because my pancreas was having a hard time. It wasn't releasing the enzymes that were needed to process the fats. So I had to cut out fats and protein at the beginning, and so I went to an all plant-based diet, and it was great. It reduced my inflammation, and I lost a lot of weight right off the bat, like quickly. And I had energy. My body was healing. I was feeding it nothing but phytonutrients and nutrient dense foods, and everything I ate was organic and from the local farmers markets and the local health food stores. And I was able to give my body the boost it needed to get healthy fast. And I healed pretty quickly. All my numbers and all my labs and everything went down to like remarkable levels. I had energy. Everything was great. I did this for, I would say, about a year, almost a year before I started having some problems. I started, at this point, looking back, now I know I was developing some pretty severe nutritional deficiencies. I was not eating enough protein. I was not eating enough fats. I was not getting things like B12 and chromium and selenium and some of the stuff that's really hard, like iron in its proper form, to get from plants. I love plants. I still, respect plants and eat plants. But at the time, just eating plants, there's a lot of things in meat that your body needs. I didn't make the rules. I wish no animals ever had to be hurt for humans to survive. But if you actually look at our ancestors and just an ancestral way of eating, humans have always eaten meat, fish, uh, birds, things like this. So it's built into us. And when I wasn't, and I'm not saying for everybody, everyone can find their own path and experiment and
Sure.
everything. Because I know people that are on plant-based diets that are completely thriving. But if you do that, be careful and make sure you supplement with the things that you're not getting from the plants. And if you do that and you cover all your bases, you'll be fine. I wasn't doing that. I was just doing plant-based, and it did a lot of good things for me. But at a certain time, I got to a point where my body needed things. So I swung all the way from one side of the pendulum, which was plant-based, all the way. And this is through a lot of research. This wasn't just, oh, I saw a podcast and all of a sudden changed everything. I did a whole bunch of research. I kept hearing about people talking about carnivore diet, and I thought it was insane. Like, how could somebody just eat steak and eggs and be healthy? It doesn't make any sense. And so I wrote it off, and I kept hearing it because I listen and I inundate myself with a lot of knowledge and data. I listen to a lot of podcasts and I read a lot of books, and I'm just, obsessed with getting healthy and how things work and all that kind of stuff. So I kept hearing it over and over. And then I would look into these people. I'm like, well, this is a very educated, like scientist or doctor or whoever the people are, and they are swearing by this way of eating. And I was like, okay, I'm intrigued now. But I knew I couldn't just swing from vegetarian to carnivore because that would just be like a shock to your system. So I went on something called Healthy Keto from Dr. Berg. I followed his protocol and I just started introducing more like lean meats into my diet. And then I started introducing more fatty meats into my diet and cutting down. I have naturally high blood sugar. So I didn't realize that on my vegetarian diet, even though it was all organic food, I was eating a ton of sugar and carbs, because if you're eating fruit and vegetables all day, it adds up. So I was,
And that's the thing that people don't realize is like people are like, oh, I eat well, I eat fruits and vegetables. I'm like, yeah, but do you understand that a Hershey bar has just as much sugar in it as a banana?
yeah,
And it may be natural sugar, but it's still sugar. Like
your
you're
body,
it
it's
yeah,
still sugar.
it's still sugar and it's mind blowing to me. I just have to throw this little thing in here. One of the things that people do on Weight Watchers, do you know when you follow the points? Have you ever heard of that on Weight Watchers and the
Right.
points? Do you know that bananas are 0 points? People on Weight Watchers can eat as many bananas in a day as they want to. And that is mind blowing to me because I'm like, way to keep them coming back, Weight Watchers, like
Yeah.
2 to 4 pounds a month in weight loss. Of course, that's all they're going to have. When you're telling them they can have 3 bananas a day, that's like 3 Hershey bars you
Yeah.
know so some of those things blow my mind that I don't know. It's just it's crazy because I have friends that have kids and they're like, "Oh, well they just eat fruits and vegetables, they don't like a lot of protein." And I'm like, "But they're overweight and they're 9 years old and well, they're eating healthy, they're eating fruits and vegetables, but it's full of sugar and carbs." Just like you're saying, like, ah, so frustrating. It's so
Yeah.
frustrating because people think they're eating good and they're not. Sorry,
Yeah.
totally off
No,
the.
you're 100% right. It is frustrating for everyone because I know for me, I was sitting there, I was like, man, I spent a fortune on, organic fruits and vegetables and supplements and everything. And like I said at the beginning, it did help my health. So I'm not like resentful or anything, but like I it's crazy to me that like humans have been alive for a couple 100,000 years and we still don't know what to eat. So what I did is right, like shouldn't we have figured this out a long time ago? And a lot of the stuff we're eating now, even if it's like natural, it's the fruits and vegetables aren't what they used to look like. When you go to the store and you get these fruits that are this big, and they're bright neon colors, when you actually see these things out in the wild that grow out in the rainforest and the jungles and stuff, you see them in their native form, they don't look like that. They don't taste like that either. They don't have this insane amount of sweetness that we have now. So we've basically just like configured and redesigned what food even is. So now our taste buds and everything about our dopamine receptors and everything have altered and changed because we're not even eating food anymore. And now
Well,
everyone is
no, because so much of it has been bioengineered.
Exactly.
And so much of it has been added hormones and added all steroids and added everything that, yeah, I mean, unless you are, Danny and I were talking about this the other day. If, how do I say this? United States of America, we have the highest obesity rate in the world, besides Russia.
Yeah.
And when you look at all these people in the European countries, they don't have cars that take them everywhere. They walk a lot. Their foods are purchased from the man down the street from his garden. There's three things in bread: yeast, water, and flour. That's it, right? There's nothing else, and it's all natural stuff. And you wonder why these people, they can eat the bread and they can drink a little bit of wine, and for the most part, they're all in really good health because it's not full of preservatives, and it's all the preservatives and all the crap in our food that's killing us, and all the things that they're spraying it with. The local guy down the street in Italy isn't spraying his vegetables with chemicals to make
Yeah.
them last longer. They're going to last like 3 or 4 days on your shelf, and that's it.
Yeah. And I mean, going to
Sorry.
farmers markets a couple times a week was a nice reminder of that because you can only eat things that are in season. So if you can get it from the local farmers market, that means that it's local and that means it's in season. Because sometimes you go to the grocery store and you're eating fruits and vegetables and things that come from far off places and they don't even grow this time of the year. And you have to think, okay, how did they even get this to grow right now? And should I be eating it? So and so whenever I went through my from vegan to vegetarian to keto to ultimate carnivore. And and I did that progression, looking at the ancestral way of eating and researching a lot of how our ancestors used to eat and everything. And along the way, somebody told me something that stuck with me. They said, "Hey, you're doing a good job." Da, da. They said, "But these extreme ways of thinking, he's like he has a homestead and he grows all of his own food and everything. And he told me this. He said you're doing good, but here's the way you need to look at it. He said what your ancestors would have done is in the winter they would have eaten heavier foods, more meats. Your meals are going to be fewer and far between. You need to pack on extra pounds in the winter. So your body's used to eating heavy, high fat meals in the winter. In the summer, when produce is growing and the vegetables are growing and the fruits are growing, and you're eating more frequently, and it's hot outside, so you actually need to shed pounds. Your body gets more used to eating lighter foods. So he's like, so it actually makes a little more sense to have more of a plant-based diet in the summer and more of a meat-based diet in the winter, and then in the fall and the spring kind of have a hybrid. And that made a lot of sense to me. So I started thinking, okay, everyone's like arguing over whether you should do vegan or carnivore and all these things. And it's like they do studies, and the studies are always inconclusive. They can't ever really decide and pinpoint which one is right and which one's wrong. And I don't think any of them are right or wrong. I think it's kind of there's a time and a place for everything. And depending on what your body is going through, what your body needs, what age you are, if you're more athletic or not, and what time of the year it is. I think there's so many factors that go into it, and it does make it very confusing. It makes it very complicated. But at the end of the day, if you're eating whole natural foods and a nice balanced diet, you're always going to be doing better. Like if you stay away from ultra processed stuff, if you stay away from high fructose corn syrup and all the other stuff, you're always going to be doing better. So I tell anyone that asks me for guidance on what they should eat, say, hey, I can't tell you what to eat because everyone's different. What I can say is eat local, eat organic, and eat real food. If you do that, you're ahead of 99% of the country, just right there off the bat. And then you can go in and kind of tweak and experiment and see how you feel. I always tell people the proof's in the pudding. Like if you eat something and your joints are a little achy or you don't have energy or you get a headache, quit eating it. Like once you get on this, like I call it the carnivore cleanse. I actually do carnivore diet now. I'm on a more balanced diet now, but I do carnivore hardcore about a week out of the month where I'll just eat steak and eggs, period. And I do that because it cleanses everything else out of my body. When you eat that way, I've never seen anything like it in my life. I've done every way of eating across the spectrum, and you do not feel better than when you eat carnivore. It's unbelievable how good you feel. The mental clarity, the energy, you sleep better, your skin looks better. Every single thing about you is better, but it's not sustainable. It's really hard to eat that way. So what I do is I do like a week a month of a carnivore cleanse, and then when I start adding foods back in, I know immediately if that food triggers anything in my digestive system or not. Like I know immediately if I eat something, if I have a cantaloupe, I'll know within 10 minutes if that's a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So it's
Yeah,
wild. Yeah, but
yeah,
people
and
like fill themselves with so many different things, it's impossible for them to discern which one is causing the problems, you know?
yeah. And that's why I like the plan that we use with Xyngular is because we do you talk about doing that carnivore for a week. We do like an 8-day jump start. It's basically lean proteins, green veggies, healthy fats for that 8 days. And then after that, you can have a cheat meal, and then you come back in and you do a post jumpstart plan for 2 weeks, and that incorporates your complex carbs, your brown rice, couscous, quinoa, sweet potato, oatmeal, things like that that aren't like your processed things, but they're better options for you, your whole grains. So that's what I've been following. Like I did all my jump starts, I got all the weight off, and then I pretty much just follow a low carb plan that incorporates some fruits, some good carbs, and lean proteins and healthy fats.
Yeah,
And then once a week I get a cheat meal,
there you
and
go.
so that's what I follow, and that's how I've been able to keep 75 pounds off for 6 years.
Hey, the proof is in
And
the pudding, right? See,
yeah,
it's
the proof
working.
is totally in the pudding, but you would think these people are dying having to give up alcohol. It's mind blowing how many people won't even try this because they're not willing to give up the alcohol. And it's not even just about that. Like they don't realize that the alcohol is what's causing the stress and the depression and all of those things. They're just self medicating. And so what I love is that all of our supplements that we have are root and plant based, right? That's really important to me. And they help with energy and mental clarity and focus along with your plan, right? So it's like it's a trifecta. You have a coach, you have a meal plan that works. Like I never knew how to eat right until this, but it told me what type of food to eat, when to eat it, how much to eat, and what supplement to take with it. So you have a coach, you have a plan, and you have supplements. And those three things are very important, like someone to help you. And and that's what's been so good about this. And so I love that I love that you're flip-flopping your diet a little bit. It's important, right? To just kind of clean your toxins out of your body and whatever you've put in. And then and you're supplementing. Supplementing is important because our foods don't have the nutrition in them that they used to. And I'm not so much trying to plug Xyngular, but I'm just like, yes, like this is what you should do. Like these are the things that we should be doing. So, yeah, I'm with you 100%. And
Well,
it,
I
and
like a big part is like plants are very powerful. There's a lot of things in plants that are ridiculously powerful. But then when you eat a plant, it's not always good for you. Like plants have different kinds of toxins. Plants in general don't want to be eaten. So in nature, they have these things that are deterrents for animals. So eating plants isn't always good for humans because there's toxins that can mess up your digestive system really bad. And so eating plants isn't always the right thing to do, but extracting certain things from plants, like there's a lot of phytonutrients and nutrients in plants that you can eat in or take in like a supplement form and get all of the benefits from it, like berberine and astaxanthin and things like that. These like super powerful antioxidants that you can get from plants and take in
yeah,
supplement form without having to actually ingest the plant. So,
yeah,
even when I was like carnivore and people would be like, they'd be telling me, people are always trying to persuade you to get off that way of eating. People are very, everyone who like subscribes to a particular way of eating will go out of their way to try to get you to come to their way of eating. So when I was carnivore, people were like, "No, you need to eat plants because of this and this." I'm like, "Oh yeah, well I drink that tea and I take this supplement and I get this from here." And they're like, "Oh, okay." So I'm like, I'm getting all of the things that they're getting from
right,
plant-based diet without eating the plants. So that way my blood
right,
sugar doesn't spike. I don't have all the problems with my insulin and that kind of stuff, but I'm still
right.
getting the good parts. So
And
supplements
that's
are
the same. Yeah, and that's same for me because I don't eat a lot of vegetables. Like when I started this, I ate two, and now I eat six. I've come a really long way, right? I mean, I grew
you
I
find
grew
what
up
works.
on do what?
I said you find what works. There's a million vegetables out there. It doesn't mean you have to eat all of them. You find the ones that
Sure,
work for you. Yeah.
sure. But what I know is like the supplements I use, like our prebiotic has a full serving of fruits and vegetables in it, right? And all the good things in it. So that helps, right? If I'm not going to eat the right foods, I can still supplement with some things. So, okay, so we've talked about food, we've talked about your journey, and the basis is like a well-rounded diet is the best thing in the world for you, you know? And we
I think
can't
so.
even get into the pyramid from, our food source pyramid and what they say we should eat every day, because that's the worst thing on the planet. But I want to be able to talk about your book too for a second.
Oh yeah.
Entrepreneurial Spirits. I want to talk about that and like how that came about, and I want to know what like one of your favorite lines from the book is, if you know it, if you can break it down to one or two.
Yeah. So actually, I have a copy right here. Entrepreneurial Spirits. It's on Amazon, and you can actually just search Jordan Crowder on Amazon because I'm the only Jordan Crowder on Amazon. So, yeah. So I had a calling to write this book for a long time. I'm not really a writer. I write for work. With marketing, I write a lot of copy, but I've never imagined myself sitting down and writing a whole book. But I had this calling, and I actually joined this local writing workshops called Storytellers, and they meet up and they do these open mics and stuff. And it really just inspired me to write this book. And my slowest month is in January every year. So this past January, I kind of made a pledge to myself. Said if I'm going to write a book, I have to do it fast because I know me. I have a million projects I've started and never finished. So I was like, I have to begin it and end it in the same month. So I gave myself 1 month to write the book. And
Wow.
yeah, I know. And so,
Wow.
so I would write one night, I would write a chapter one night, and I would edit it the next 2 nights. And then I would write a chapter and edit it the next 2 nights. And I did that routine. And I did a thing called automatic writing. So I've been a pretty hardcore meditator for a few years now. It was actually a big part of my recovery and a big part of my healing process. Um, Actually, is how I lowered my blood pressure dramatically was through meditation and finding these kind of creating these techniques of meditation. And I'm a very high strung person, so for me to say I meditate is actually remarkable. But it's changed my life and it actually saved my life. But um, so,
I
anyways,
need you to teach me how to do that, because the life coach I work with, I'm like, she's like, okay, take a deep breath at the beginning, and I'm like, Janelle, you're gonna get like 2 minutes of me being still, and
yeah,
that's it. Like that's all I got. So the thought of like meditation, it it's yeah. I mean,
I hear you.
yeah.
I'm actually working on a course right now that basically is teaching people how to meditate that can't and don't and won't meditate because I know how powerful it is. It really is extremely powerful. You can do things through a meditative state that you just simply can't do any other way. It's crazy powerful. But one of the ways I wrote this book actually was through this thing called automatic writing, where you basically go into a meditative state and the writing sort of comes through you or comes out of you, however you want to say it. And to the point where it's funny when I would go to edit it. So I'd write a chapter one night and I'd edit it the next night. So many times when I'm editing it, I didn't remember writing it. And it was just the night before. And I was sober. So it is a unique way to write, but it was the only way I could do it with like getting me out of the way. Basically, that way I'm not like arguing over what to write and I'm not sitting there like, the hardest part of writing is like over analyzing every single part. So this way you automatically write in like a subconscious way in like a meditative state. And so I wrote this book in 28 days and published it. And basically within a month, I had it written and published. And it was like 6 weeks after I started writing it, I had a copy in my hands. And I was like, wow, what a world. So,
You're a machine. Wow. That is
it's,
so freaking impressive.
it's just cool that we live in this world where anyone can basically write and publish a book. It really is wild. But so the book is kind of it's an autobiographical guidebook. So I call the subtitles "How to Harness Your Spiritual Powers to Become a Better Entrepreneur." What I learned through this process the last few years was, that basically there's so much untapped potential in every single human. There's so many things that people can do that they don't think they can do. The human body is capable of so many things that we don't give it credit for. We've been dumbed down. We've been basically convinced that we're not capable of things. We're not worthy of things. That's all through design. I won't get into that here. But the point is, humans are capable of a lot of things. Humans can heal themselves. Humans can manifest any life that they want. Humans can basically create their story, their reality. And I learned a lot of interesting things over the last few years. So I put it in this book and I did it in a kind of chronological, autobiographical way, where it's also teaching lessons, and basically I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and so it's helping other entrepreneurs learn from my mistakes, and also kind of giving some tools, some spiritual tools along the way of things that people can help leverage and kind of help people get to know themselves and help people figure out their path. I mean, I've met so many people over the years that, especially entrepreneurial people, that they know in their head they want to be an entrepreneur. It's in their heart. They know they have that entrepreneurial spirit, but they don't know what to do. They have no idea, and they just kind of hop from side hustle to side hustle and start business after business. But they don't know what they're actually supposed to be doing. And what I teach in this book and what I've learned are techniques to actually, by using your, whatever you want to call it, your guides, God, your inner self, whoever you talk to and whoever you connect with on the other side, to give you information, to feed you your path and what you should be doing, and in a very clear way, to where it's like, it's not fuzzy. You're not like, I think it's not in riddles or anything. It's like this is it. And when you get that kind of aha moment of this is it, it changes everything, because then you can put all of your energy and focus into that one thing, as opposed to just jumping around and throwing things at the wall. And we're still entrepreneurs. We still get distracted by shiny objects, and we still constantly start things that we shouldn't be starting and everything. It's real easy to get off track. But I did discover there is a way to figure out what you are supposed to be doing. And I think that everyone has two purposes. I think you have a earthly purpose, and you have your spiritual purpose. You have a purpose here on earth, which, you have to provide for your family. You have to contribute to your community. You have to help the world evolve and become a better place. So everybody has a job they're supposed to do, whether it's a plumber or a teacher or a scientist or just a stay at home. Those are all jobs, and they're super important. But then you also have a more spiritual job. You have something that you came to earth to actually accomplish and to do. And I think that, whether it's learning a lesson or whatever it is, I think that when you learn both of those paths and you can do them both simultaneously, you can do your earthly job, you can go to work and you can be a plumber all day long and take pride in that and earn that money and help the world be a better place by being an awesome plumber. And you can also, carve out time. I always tell people the thing you're trying to buy by starting your own business is trying to buy time. And with that time that you buy, you get to pursue and nurture your spiritual side and go down that path. And you can do both at the same time. You don't have to do one or the other. Because I know a lot of people that go all in on the spiritual side, and then you'll see them and they're very spiritual and they're very, like wise in that sense, but a lot of them are suffering financially. A lot of them are, poor because they're just going after that path. And then you see people that only go after their physical path, and then they lose their connection to their religious side or their spiritual side. So you want to be able to straddle both and go down both paths. So that was the
It
main
all comes back to balance.
balance. Exactly.
It's
That's
the
it.
it's the one it's the one thing that us as humans are the worst at.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing, like balancing our and that's is I guess the question I ask myself all the time is there truly a balance? Because, you hear people say, okay, well, you need to balance things in your life and spend this much time doing this. But the reality is, I don't know if there's really a balance. You just have to figure out what your priorities are.
I always tell people there's levers. So you're pulling different levers for different things. So meaning there's different times in your life when you have to pull certain levers. So maybe you're in a hard time and you need to make some money and you need to basically turn off your spiritual and your other levers, and you need to focus on work, and you need to just pull all of your work levers and you need to go and make some money. And there's other times where, okay, bills are paid, money's in the bank, we're doing good there. Maybe I can turn off some of my work levers and I can start focusing. I can get more in touch with myself. I can talk to God more. I can
Mhm.
I can get back in. I can kind of. It's like the pendulum thing from earlier. Sometimes we get stuck in the extremes, right? But sometimes the extremes are necessary to get through certain things. Sometimes you need to be extremely religious and you need to be extremely spiritual to get through a certain time, right? But then other times that might hurt you, where what I mean. Maybe you're too far in that extreme. So I think that it's about being flexible. So it is about having balance, but life is wild, and there's so many different situations. So you can't just tell someone it's 50-50, because there's certain times in life where maybe you need to be 90-10 for the next 2 months, but then maybe you can
Right,
go 50-50 after that. So it's all
right.
about being flexible and kind of adjusting with the situation, but trying not to get stuck there. We get stuck in the extremes where people will just hang their hat on things and be like, this is the way. And it's like, okay, that's the way right now, but that might not be the way in a year. Like in a year, you might be in a totally different situation, and you need to be able to adjust your mindset as your life changes and as the world
Sure,
changes. Yeah.
sure. I love that. Um, so I want to thank you for being on here. This has been some really, really, really good stuff. But I want to ask you one more thing before we go, because we're almost at an hour. It goes by really fast. It's
Uh,
crazy, right? When you have good conversation, it just goes by.
yeah,
Um,
it doesn't seem like an hour.
I know. What is your best, like, if you could leave someone with something that you hope that they pick up what you put down, what would it be? Like, what is your, like, one of your top pieces of advice that you could leave for someone here just for life? Not even anything specific, just in life.
Yeah, so I will say, I think one of the main reasons why meditation works so good is because you get to spend time with yourself. And I think that in this world, we're constantly glued to devices and we're constantly busy and we're just so distracted. And I think most people don't get to know themselves. And I think everybody is awesome. Everyone is funny, everyone has quirks, and everyone is super interesting. So I see so many people just go through life without ever getting to know themselves really. And I guess the thing I would say that's helped me a whole lot and that I would encourage people to do is spend time just really getting to know themselves. It doesn't make you selfish, it's not weird. It's very, very vital and it's very important because you have to know yourself inside and out, every single thing about yourself to be able to navigate this crazy world. I mean, most people know their kids and their friends and everyone else way better than they know themselves. And so, I just would encourage people to, as weird as it sounds, to spend some time with themselves and get to know themselves because, if you can be comfortable with yourself, then it really does make a big difference. And, I think that people will be less hard on themselves. They won't be as critical and everything on themselves. You need to have compassion with yourself and empathy with yourself and also know that you are a badass. Know that most people are not fulfilling their potential. Most people have 90% more, potential to go. So I think when you really get to know yourself, you know that you kind of understand that you're like, man, I can do the big things. I can do hard things. I can heal. I can create. I can do these things. And the more you can have confidence in that, I think it's really, really important because this world kind of beats us down at times. And, you have to build yourself back up because the world's not going to do it for you. You have to build yourself up. So get to know yourself and, be proud of yourself and, realize that you have a lot more potential. Like, and I don't care how successful you are and how awesome you are, even that person has a tremendous amount of more potential. So I
Yeah.
think there really is like unlimited human potential.
I think that's so true. And, I think one of the most dreaded questions in most interviews for people is, tell me about yourself. And
Yeah.
everybody goes, uh, and most of us freeze, in that moment because, well, I can tell you I'm a mom and I can tell you I have 4 kids and I can tell you about all my kids, but, can I tell you really about myself? And do you really want to know those things, the things that I know about myself? you know,
Yeah. That's what
that is
makes
some,
you. Those are the important things.
yeah,
Every,
it
yeah.
is. And I tell people all the time, whatever it is that you're doing great because it takes a million different kinds of people to reach a million different kinds of people. And if God wanted us all to be the same, we'd all be the same, but we're not. We're all different for a reason,
Mhm.
you know?
It'd be a
It's,
boring world if everyone was the same.
oh my gosh, no fun at all. No fun
Yeah.
at all. Jordan, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on here. Guys, go check out Jordan's book, Jordan Crowder, on Amazon. It's called Entrepreneurial Spirits. It will be in my next of reads. That is for sure. I'm definitely a book reader, so I love to read. Um, but gosh, thank you for taking the time to be on here.
Yeah,
And
thank
I look
you.
forward to seeing your podcast and what you're going to do with it. I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, well, this is motivating me, so good job on
Yeah.
on your end. You are motivating people, so This
Yeah.
is a big motivator for me to do my own thing too. So thank you.
Good. We're a little over a year in.
Nice.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. All right. Thank you so much.
you got it.
Appreciate y'all being here. Peace out, homies. See y'all later.